Welcome to the Femme Fatal, a true crime podcast with an astrology twist. I'm your host, Stacey Dotson. Each week, I'll be joined by a guest host because this Femme Fatale prefers not to work alone. Hello, and welcome back to the Femme Fatal. Today, I'm once again joined by Greg, my husband. Hey, babe.
Hey, babe. Hello.
How are you?
Doing good. It's really nasty weather outside, but I'm glad I can come up here and hear you tell me a story.
Yes. Well, today's story is about a woman that's deeply, deeply involved in a federal sex trafficking case. And today we're talking about Allison Mack.
Oh, wow. So like Smallville, huh?
So Smallville, Chloe Sullivan. Yes. Clark's best friend, the girl next door of the WB network for 10 years, a show that you and I watched together for 10 years.
I know.
Wondering when Clark would realize he could fly. And spoiler alert, it wasn't till the series finale.
I have a lot of opinions on Smallville, but that's probably not the time or place to go over many of them.
This is not the Smallville rewatch podcast, yes. So Allison, in addition to being Chloe Sullivan and the girl next door, she was second in command of a sex cult operating out of Albany, New York, convicted felon, federal prisoner, and honestly, one of the most fascinating stories I'm going to ever cover.
Oh, if I was going to start a sex cult, Albany, New York would be my first choice.
Yes. And she's both a perpetrator and, as you'll hear the story in a very, very complicated way, eventually a victim. Allison Mack was born on July 29th, 1982 in Preetz, West Germany. Her father, Jonathan Mack, was an opera singer performing in Europe. And her mother, Mindy, was a school teacher and bookkeeper. She also had an older brother, Robin, and a younger sister, Shannon. And when Allison was 2 years old, the family moved back to the United States and settled in Long Beach, California. Allison starts acting at the age of 4 in commercials, and her first job is a series of print ads for a German chocolate company. I guess somehow maybe there was a connection from her Germany days. And it just snowballs from there. By age 7, she's enrolled at the Young Actor Space in Los Angeles, a serious acting school for kids. And by all accounts, she's a cheerful, energetic kid who genuinely loved performing. She racks up TV movies, guest spots, commercials throughout the late 80s and 90s. She appears in Police Academy 6 as a child.
Well, Police Academy 6, the most memorable of the 27 Police Academies
Yes.
that came out.
She's in another film with Sissy Spacek. She's in Camp Nowhere, and she pops up in Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves. Remember that franchise?
Is that the one with Rick Moranis?
Rick Moranis,
Okay, yeah.
In 1997 and 98, she gets a recurring arc on Seventh Heaven, the very wholesome WB family drama. And she plays a teenager who's self-harming. Critics notice her role. She's very good in this role, and they see a quality, the girl next door, someone you can root for. And so good things started to happen. And in 2000, she co-stars in a short-lived Fox series called Opposite Sex, playing Kate Jacobs. The show is canceled after one season, but in that cast, a very young Milo Ventimiglia from Heroes and a very young Chris Evans. Yes, Chris Evans, Captain America. So in October 2001, everything changes. She lands the role that would define her life, and that is the role of Chloe Sullivan in Smallville. For anyone that needs a refresher, Smallville is WB, later CW drama about Clark Kent before he becomes Superman, and it runs from 2001 to 2011, 10 seasons. And Tom Welling plays Clark, and Kristen Krug plays Lana Lang, his high school crush. And she's important. She comes up later in the story. Allison Mack plays Chloe, and a character who did not exist in the original DC comics, as you know, right? So she was invented specifically for this show. Chloe is Clark's best friend. She's the editor of the school newspaper, The Torch. Remember that?
The Torch. I do.
She's smart, funny, loyal, and endlessly supportive. And she has that iconic blonde bob, the short blonde bob. And she was very, very popular with viewers. She became so popular with viewers that the producers greenlit a spin-off web series called Smallville Chloe Chronicles that aired exclusively on AOL.com. I don't remember that. Do you remember that?
Not really.
I know. I don't remember that. I may have to look that up later. So other than Tom Welling, Allison is the only character to appear in every season of Smallville. She even got to direct 2 episodes, by the way, in seasons 8 and 9. And so, by every account, she's a talented, hardworking actress, right? Now, here's something important I want to sit with you. Chloe Sullivan is essentially the friend everyone wants. She's fiercely loyal, always in your corner, and will help you hide a body. And metaphorically, in Clark's case, almost literally. So she's the kind of person who makes you feel like you matter. She has charisma like that, like everybody wants to be her friend.
So she's basically kind of the same person in real life as she played in the show, that she's just someone that you trust, that, you confide in, that's easily, able to work herself into your good graces.
Or even if she's not really that person, she can act that way.
Gotcha.
So while Smallville's shooting, she's living in Vancouver, British Columbia, and she has a long-term relationship with the Canadian actor named Chad Krawchuk. And she travels with him. She's been to Syria, Turkey, Mongolia, Paris, and she's also really, really good friends with Kristen Crook. They actually roomed together at one point in New York's West Village. And despite all of that, the fame, the travel, the fans adoring her, in her own words, on a CBC podcast, she said that despite having the kind of dream life that everybody wants, she had this odd emptiness, and that her and Kristen, they would talk about it a lot, that they both felt like they're at the height of their careers. They're living what would look like a perfect life from the outside, but they were quietly feeling like something was missing and couldn't explain it. And in 2006, Kristen Crook finds something she thinks might help. So let's talk about what NXIVM is. It's run by a man named Keith Raniere and a woman named Nancy Salzman in Albany, New York. They first sort of branded it as a success program. They called it the Executive Success Programs, or ESP. On the surface, it's a self-help company. They sold what they called rational inquiry courses.
What is that?
I don't know. Multi-day intensives designed to help you identify and overcome psychological blocks, achieve your goals, become your best self. The courses cost thousands of dollars, and in my opinion, were obviously bullshit, right? Students were encouraged to recruit others who were also encouraged to recruit others. It was a standard MLM structure. They called their courses tech, and their founder Vanguard. And that's what Keith Raniere was known as on the inside of NXIVM. He was known as Vanguard.
Not Vanguard Raniere, just Vanguard?
Just Vanguard.
So this NXIVM, they form it in Albany. They decide, hey, we're just going to put some self-help crap out there. And a bunch of people were like, this sounds great and legit, signed up for it. And they started recruiting other people, and it's building at this point, right? Yes, it's
building. Now, Raniere is a strange man. He was born in 1960, and he spent years making outlandish claims of his own intelligence. He claimed to be one of the top 3 problem solvers in the world, that he had a near photographic memory, and that he held the world record for highest IQ. None of this was independently verified, but he had previously run a pyramid scheme in the early 90s called Consumers Byline that collapsed after a multi-state investigation. He also reportedly had sexual relationships with girls as young as 12.
Ugh.
But by the late 90s, he had reinvented himself as a self-help guru, and NXIVM was his vehicle. Now, in 2006, Kristen Crook takes a 2-day introductory course through a NXIVM women's group called Janus, and she loves it, glowing about it. She tells Allison, it's the science of joy. It's the most amazing thing. It's made everything so much better in my life. And Allison remembers also feeling this emptiness and actively searching for something to fill it. So she decides to go. She attends the same 2-day introduction, and she's hooked, immediately, completely hooked. She described it later as feeling like she had finally found the thing she had been looking for. The courses gave her language for things she'd felt her whole life. They made her feel seen, understood, like she was being handed tools to become a fundamentally better version of herself. And not to dismiss her experience, but that's textbook cult recruitment right there, you know? Cults are extraordinarily effective at identifying people who are searching for meaning, for community, for identity, offering them exactly what they need to hear. And Allison was a searcher and NXIVM founder. Now, didn't know this, Kristen Kruk also joins. So for a few years, they're both members of NXIVM.
And they're out there recruiting people and spreading the word and all that good stuff, right?
Yes.
Okay.
But Kristen eventually leaves. She will later say that she left in 2013 and had minimal contact with remaining members after that. She exits, but Allison doesn't. And then obviously their paths go in completely different directions.
So they're not living together anymore at this point?
Nope. And Smallville's
they still friends or?
So Smallville's this is around 2013. Smallville's over, but they were still friends. They remain friends, but now Kristen's going to be out of the picture because this is where Allison goes all in. So by 2010, actually, Allison is not just a casual NXIVM member. She's moved to Albany to be closer to the community. Smallville ends in 2011. And then rather than pursuing more acting, she throws herself into NXIVM. And she becomes one of the most visible and active recruiters in the organization. She co-creates a program called The Source, a NXIVM track specifically designed to recruit actors. She's using her Hollywood connections, her fame, and her genuine warmth to bring people in. She approaches her Smallville co-stars. She tries to recruit Callum Blue and Alania Huffman. The pitch is always the same. The community will make you a better artist, a better person, a more fulfilled human being. Come see.
Did anybody from Smallville take her up on the offer?
No, I think the only one that was in there with her was Kristen. So she also started an NXIVM a cappella group, which we don't need to talk about that, but I thought that was funny. She's falling deeper and deeper in with Keith Raniere and his influence.
Yeah.
And
Whenever you join the cult and you start the a cappella group within the cult, that probably means you're all in.
Yeah, you're all in. She starts a sexual relationship with Keith. And
the leader?
Yeah, the cult leader.
What about the Canadian?
You know what? I don't know. I guess he disappeared. Well, she moved to Albany, so I guess she left him. So she starts a sexual relationship with Keith. And according to her own account on a CBC podcast, he frames it as energy work, a form of spiritual healing for her insecurities around her sexuality. He tells her, "I cannot stress enough how chilling this is, and that no other man will be able to do what he does for her, that she's special and their connection is singular." Gag.
That's so cringe.
So cringe. So she had sex with him daily. She had threesomes. Daily.
Wow.
She had threesomes with other NXIVM members who were also in sexual relationships with Raniere. And she tells women on the inside that they will reach enlightenment if they follow her path and develop a relationship with Keith. And she is at this point a true believer, a disciple. She genuinely thinks that this man is changing her life for the better and that everything he does, including the things that look from the outside like manipulation and coercion, are for her benefit.
I have no comment. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
At least they learned a cappella.
Yeah, they're better singers for it. Yeah.
And then in 2015, Keith Raniere creates something new, something called DOS. And DOS stands for Dominus Obsequis Sororium. It's Latin, and it translates to Master over Slave Women, or in some readings, Lord of the Obedient Female Companions. Raniere later denies the translation. So here is how Raniere presented the DOS to the women he recruited into it. He said it was a top secret women's empowerment society, a sorority, a sisterhood. It's going to help women develop strength, discipline, and self-reliance, and to hold themselves accountable, to push past their limitations. It was for serious women only who were ready to commit to something. And it was exclusive, and it was special, and you were chosen. So here's how DOS actually worked. It was a pyramid scheme. He was very good at that, apparently. Keith Raniere was at the top. He was the sole grandmaster and the only man in the entire organization. He initially recruited 8 women directly. These were his first-line masters. One of the first-line masters was Allison. So each first-line master was then expected to recruit slaves, as he called them, of their own, Those slaves would recruit further slaves and so on and so on. And at its height, roughly 150 women were in DOS. And the key thing here is that the women lower in the pyramid, the ones being recruited by people like Allison, were not told that Keith Raniere was even involved. They were told it was a woman-only group sorority. And so his involvement was hidden.
Until he showed up for sex and it was like, surprise!
So before a woman could even find out what DOS really was, she had to provide what they called collateral. Now, this is the mechanism that made the whole thing work and is as dark as it sounds. Collateral could be nude photographs, sexually explicit videos, a written confession to a crime you may or may not have committed, a letter falsely accusing a family member of abuse, your parent, your sibling, your financial assets, anything damaging enough that if it were released, your life would be destroyed. So collateral is what the women had to hand over, and that's what they're going to hold over their heads, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So they were told it's a show of commitment. And then once you're in and understand the full nature of DOS, everything is going to be okay. But then if you're not happy, if you leave, they would try to release everything. So Allison was in charge of collecting collateral from these girls. According to court documents, she was meticulous about it. She would follow up. She would push for more damaging material if what was offered wasn't enough. One woman, identified in court later only as Nicole, testified that Allison required her to hand over a sex tape and a letter falsely claiming that her father had sexually abused her before she had any idea what she was getting into. So once inside the DOS, the requirements escalated. Members were kept on near starvation diets, some as low as 500 to 800 calories a day. They were required to be available to respond to their masters at any hour via text message, and they were given acts of care, assignments to complete to prove devotion. Some of these involved seducing Keith, as framed as a spiritual honor, and one woman...
And this is all happening in Albany. Like all these people were in Albany. They weren't like living in Buffalo and then would come down. This is all happening. They all moved there.
Allalbany.
Okay.
All Albany. So one woman testified that Allison told her she needed to have sex with Raniere as a way of healing her trauma from a previous sexual abuse situation. Allison orchestrated the encounter and she supposedly watched. Then there's the branding. This part of story that broke the DOS open publicly and is the single most viscerally disturbing element of everything. Okay.
All right.
As part of the induction into the DOS, the women were branded physically with the cauterizing pen, a medical device used in surgery that cuts through flesh. The brand was applied to the skin of the lower abdomen near the pubic region. It took between 20 and 30 minutes. There was no anesthesia. Other DOS members held the woman down on the table during the procedure.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Women were told the brand was a symbol of 4 elements: air, earth, fire, and water. Some were told it was an ancient feminine symbol, and what they weren't told is that the brand was a carefully designed monogram of Keith Raniere's initials, KAR. And Allison Mack's initials, AM, were burned into their skin permanently without their knowledge of what it actually represented.
Wow. Just.
I know. This really happened.
Crazy.
The branding was performed by a woman named Danielle Roberts, an osteopathic physician and a NXIVM member herself, who was also branded. Roberts would later have her medical license revoked following an investigation into her role in the ceremonies. And obviously, needless to say, the New York State Department of Health did not consider this to be an appropriate medical practice.
You think?
So now there's an audio recording, and this becomes one of the most important pieces of evidence in the entire criminal case. It's a conversation between Keith and Allison discussing the branding ceremony in advance. And Raniere talks through exactly how he wants it conducted. He says, the person should probably ask to be branded. They should probably say that before they're held down, so it doesn't seem like they're being coerced. He also says he'd like it videotaped from multiple angles because the footage would make additional collateral. Allison happened to record that conversation, and later, after her arrest, as part of her cooperation agreement with prosecutors, Allison would hand over that recording. So anyway, so it was played at his trial. It is one of the primary reasons he's currently serving 120 years in federal prison.
Wow. That still seems kind of lenient.
So the branding was first exposed publicly in 2017 by a journalist named Frank Harlotto, who ran a blog called The Frank Report. He'd gotten information from a former member. Then in October 2017, the New York Times published a bombshell story. A woman named Sarah Edmondson, a Canadian actress who'd been a senior NXIVM member since 2005, went on record. She described being recruited into DOS, providing collateral, and attending a branding ceremony at Allison Mack's home in Albany, where she was blindfolded, held down, naked, and branded. Edmondson said the brand was presented to her as a symbol of the elements. She didn't find out it was Raniere's initials until after the story broke publicly. She needed plastic surgery to attempt to address the scarring. And she is currently the lead plaintiff in a major civil lawsuit against NXIVM and its leadership. So after the Times piece drops, something interesting happens. Raniere sends a statement to his inner circle claiming that DOS is an autonomous organization separate and distinct from NXIVM, and that he has little knowledge or authority in the matter. And then he, Allison, and several other senior members flee to Mexico.
Wow. I don't know anything about it. Bails.
Trying to separate it. I guess NXIVM is what had all the money. Maybe the civil lawsuit, okay, so
that's going on now, 2026. It's happening.
There's still a civil lawsuit.
She's not off the hook, right?
Technically, I don't know if she was owner in it, though, but I'll get to where she is in a sec. So, in March 2018, Keith Raniere is arrested in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. Federal agents and Mexican police raid a gated compound where he has been hiding with several of his inner circle, including Lauren Saltzman, the first-line DOS master and daughter of NXIVM co-founder Nancy Saltzman. So Nancy got her daughter involved.
Wow.
So Lauren Saltzman later testified that when the raid happened, Raniere hid in a closet. They found him. He was taken into custody with 4 machine guns pointed at Lauren while he was arrested. A few weeks later, on April 20th, 2018, Allison Mack is arrested by the FBI in Brooklyn. The charges are sex trafficking conspiracy, and forced labor conspiracy. She is 35 years old at this time. She's released on a $5 million bond and placed under house arrest at her parents' home in Orange County, California. She had one of those electronic bracelets, and she wasn't allowed to use internet or cell phone. So this is fascinating because it's just how deep the programming of these people went, right? So for several months after her arrest, Allison does not cooperate with prosecutors. She remains loyal to Raniere. She believes, or at least behaves as she believes, that none of this is what it looks like. The cult spent years telling its members that outside persecution is proof of virtue. The people attacking NXIVM are the ones who can't handle the truth. And Allison, even sitting at her parents' house under house arrest, is still inside that framework at that time.
That's some programming right there.
It is. Her attorneys later describe it as being confined to her parents' house, being physically removed from the NXIVM environment and surrounded by her family as what likely has saved her life. Slowly, the framework begins to collapse without Raniere's daily involvement and without the community consistently reinforcing the belief system. So without that sleep deprivation and restricted diet and all that demand for devotion, she starts to...
Can you imagine how that moment of clarity must have been for her when she realizes being involved in A, B, C, D, and E? I can't imagine what. That's
terrible. So in April 2019, about a year after her arrest, she pleads guilty to racketeering and racketeering conspiracy. She admits to extortion, forced labor, and manipulating women into becoming slaves for Keith Raniere. In her plea, she acknowledges that she knew what she was doing was wrong. She begins cooperating with prosecutors, and she provides the audio recording I mentioned earlier. Meanwhile, Keith's trial proceeds in May 2019, and outside of all the stuff I told you about, additional evidence emerges. Photographs found on his computer of child pornography.
Oh.
And on June 19th, 2019, the jury convicts Keith guilty of 7 counts: racketeering conspiracy, wire fraud conspiracy, forced labor conspiracy, sex trafficking conspiracy, sex trafficking count 1, sex trafficking count 2 attempted. He's sentenced in October 2020 to 120 years in federal prison. He's 60 years old at this time, so he will die there. And now it's Allison's turn. Sentencing day for her was June 30th, 2021. Allison walked into the Brooklyn federal court. Her mother and her brother are there to support her. Under the advisory sentencing guidelines, she's facing 14 to 17 and a half years. Federal prosecutors credit her for her substantial cooperation, advocate for leniency, and her attorney asked for no jail time at all, citing cooperation, rehabilitation, and remorse. Before the sentence is handed down, there are victim impact statements that are read. An actress named Jessica Jones appeared in person and delivers a statement calling Allison, quote, a predator, an evil human being, a danger to society. She says that Allison and Raniere are the two most evil monsters I ever met. And she says she looked into Allison's eyes that day in the courtroom and saw a sociopath with no remorse. So Allison submits a letter to the court in advance. In it, she writes, I threw myself into the teachings of Keith Raniere with everything I had. I believed wholeheartedly that his mentorship was leading me to a better, more enlightened version of myself. I devoted my loyalty, my resources, and ultimately my life to him. She says her involvement with NXIVM was the biggest mistake and greatest regret of her life. So the judge ends up sentencing her to 3 years in federal prison and a $20,000 fine. I mean, that's nothing, right?
Well, she posted, what, a $5 million
bail? She had $5 million bail, right?
Bail, yeah.
Yeah. So 3 years of supervised probation after release, 1,000 hours of community service. She doesn't cry during the statement, but she has said since that she was thinking about her mother and brother sitting behind her listening. And she says, I don't see myself as innocent. On September 13th, 2021, she reports to the Federal Correctional Institution in Dublin, California. While Allison was under house arrest at her parents' house waiting for sentencing, she was also dealing with the fallout from her marriage. In February 2017, 1 year before her arrest, Allison Mack married a Canadian actress named Nikki Klein. Klein was also an NXIVM member. She played Callie on Battlestar Galactica. The marriage was later confirmed by multiple witnesses, including India Oxenberg, to have been a sham. It was orchestrated by Keith to help Klein get around U.S. immigration laws and remain in the country.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So Allison filed for divorce in December 2020. Nikki Klein, for the record, has not followed Allison's path of cooperation. Klein remains one of Raniere's most vocal supporters. She actively campaigns for his exoneration. She believes he's innocent. And so Allison Mack was briefly married to a woman who is still to this day advocating for the man who ran the sex cult they were both in.
Wow. This story has so many layers.
It does. It really does. Allison serves 21 months at Dublin. She's released on July 3rd, 2023. And while in prison, she had already been working towards her education. She got her associate's degree from a community college in California before surrendering. She enrolls at UC Berkeley, and she is pursuing a bachelor's degree in rhetoric and psychology. She's also been working as a caterer at this time.
So no acting?
No acting.
I don't think anyone would probably touch her at
Probably
this point,
not.
right? I mean,
yeah, I don't think so. She's canceled.
A psychologist and a catering business on the side now?
Yeah, I guess that's her, while you're going to college job. So after her release in 2023, she basically disappears from public view and she remarries. In 2025, she marries a man named Frank Mink. She pursues a master's degree in social work. And then in November 2025, just a few months ago, she sits down with journalist Natalie Robemed for a 7-episode podcast produced by CBC's Uncover called Allison After NXIVM. And it's the first time she spoke publicly since her incarceration.
Okay.
She doesn't hold back. She says, I don't see myself as innocent. I was not kind and I was aggressive and I was abusive. And she acknowledges using her celebrity as a power tool to recruit women into DOS. She says she was very effective in moving Keith's vision forward. She's not here to claim that she was purely a victim. She also describes the coercive control, the psychological manipulation, the way her entire sense of self had been dismantled and rebuilt around Raniere's approval for more than a decade. And in the podcast, she says, I definitely recognize and admit that I was abusing my power and that I was mean and I was forceful. But I also can't negate the fact that there was a part of me that was altruistic and was desperate to help people. And I wanted to be better. And I was willing to do anything to be better in myself and to help other people be better. To this day, there's a framed autograph headshot of her as a kid in the Taco Bell across the street from Warner Brothers Studios in Burbank, left over from when she was a kid actor.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a random fact.
It is a random fact. So
she's just doing social work in California now.
Yeah, and she got married. I don't know anything really about the guy. I didn't look into it. The story was long already.
She was born in 82, you said?
She was born in 82, yes. So
that'd make her
44.
44.
Because this is such a long story, I told him I'd try to be quick on the astrology part.
Okay.
So I think her chart explains a little bit about it, why she felt so empty and why she was the perfect person to help recruit these people. So she's born July 29th, 1982. Her sun sign basic personality is in Leo, and people want to follow her. Leos are magnetic, generous, born to lead, but a Leo without a worthy mission is a Leo in quiet existential crisis. And Allison had fame without purpose. Her moon is in Scorpio, and your moon signs, your emotion, and death and transformation are kind of Scorpio's two key words. She had an insatiable hunger for that transformation and depth, and that's what made the NXIVM pitch hard to resist. Now, her Mercury was also in Leo, and I always say if your Mercury and your sun are in the same sign, it's usually good. You're a good communicator. So she was able to communicate and convince people to follow her, communicate her beliefs with conviction, and recruiting probably was like, sharing a gift, not running a con, right? Her Venus in Cancer, how you love, meant she loved by nurturing and built her entire sense of home and safety around one person. So when Raniere told her their bond was singular and no one else would have ever understood why, that wasn't flattery. That was the deep longing of her emotional life being answered. And her Mars was in Libra, and your Mars is your action planet. It meant she could only truly act in service of someone else, constantly reframing her own actions as righteous and helpful, which is exactly why even now she struggles to fully separate the harm she caused with the altruism she believed she was performing. I went ahead and did a little bit of research on Keith too. So just a couple of things. Keith Raniere was born August 26, 1960 in Brooklyn. He's a Virgo sun. And on a good day, that's an analytical, methodical, detail-oriented, and devoted to self-improvement type of sign. So on a bad day, critical, controlling, obsessed with finding the flaw in everyone else. The sun alone is not the story. The story is what the sun is doing. Raniere's sun is conjunct to Pluto, and conjunct means fused together, amplified. And Pluto is the planet of power, control, death, and transformation. The sun conjunct to Pluto, people have almost pathological need to dominate, to have total psychology authority over others. They are drawn to power the way the rest of us are drawn to warmth. His sun and Pluto, on top of that, are also trine to Saturn, and they flow effortlessly together, which is the planet of discipline, structure, and long game, Saturn is. So if you have the drive for total control fused with the patience and the system building to actually achieve it over decades, this is not a cult leader who stumbles onto power. It's a cult leader who architects it. I know that I'm going a little deep into him, and he's a he, but he's very important to her story too. So what are your thoughts on this story?
Is there still anything left in NXIVM at this point? I mean, it got dismantled and shut down, but did like a disciple move on to like form NXIVM 2.0 or something like that? I mean, it's a shame that she got sucked up in all this, but she's definitely to blame for her crimes.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think she got let off pretty easily. So she must have had some really good evidence that allowed them to get the bigger fish.
Well, that recording that she provided, apparently the prosecution played it multiple times for the jury.
Yeah,
that was pretty damning evidence.
The fallout from this and how big it got. And I remember seeing it in the news and all that, but not realizing it was this. It's pretty mind-boggling. And this guy, hopefully we'll never see the light of day again.
Hopefully.
I don't know if he comes up for parole or not, but.
They said 120 years. I didn't see if there's no chance of parole, but I don't think he's going to get out. He's already 60.
Well, good riddance to him, I guess. He was not a very nice person.
Yeah. What a narcissist is just not even a strong enough word for his behavior. Branding his own initials on these women. You heard me say it, 150 at one point at the height.
They're all branded.
They're all branded.
Ugh.
On that note, thanks for coming on. And
you promised me an interesting story. You did not fail. So thanks, babe, for letting me be part of this again. Always have a good time.
Yes. Love you.
Love you too.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for listening to Femme Fatal. And I will put some links on some of the sources that I cited in our story today. Bye.
Bye.
The Femme Fatal, created and hosted by Stacey Dotson, produced by Mark Williams. Music by Marcia Yingling, Chad Shank, and Greg Loicano.